Welcome back to the OU Insider YouTube live version. We hope that this version has less laggy and more fun than the last one.
Apologies. We're all
Yeah,
still trying to figure this out. New
yeah.
adventure.
I mean, it is what it is. But so we're back nonetheless, and this is as I'm looking down at the format, it looks like it is much better, much cleaner, much more fluid than the last version. So that's a good start. That's a great start. But like we were talking about on that last setup, we were talking about Ted Roof and OU fans' distaste. I was reading one of the fans while we were trying to fix the technical issue, and he said, "Distaste is putting it kindly." That may be, but and I said this off air, and I'll say it to the fan base in general. Look, Venables is going to hire who he wants to hire because it fits the program that he's trying to build for the University of Oklahoma. Now, what I thought was the most interesting thing, and the other thing I want to note is like fans want splash. They always want the splash, and I think that's something that is a bad quality to have. I think in a roundabout way. I think you can demand splash, you can want splash, but at some point in time, you've got to not leave yourself up for disappointment. And yeah, there was a lot of big names being thrown out there. There was a lot of stuff that was out there, and a lot of it was true as far as what Oklahoma was pursuing and trying to do. But when said coach gets offered a head coaching job, you're not going to win that battle. I mean, there's no way around it. So that's number one. Number two, this guy, and I've talked to SEC people, and all of them, to a man or a woman, has said, look, this guy is fantastic at what he does. He knows defenses and he can coach linebackers. I mean, they think the world of him. They think he's a great guy. They think he's a great coach. He's not going to have to recruit linebackers. Venables' defense is going to recruit the linebackers, and Venables will recruit the linebackers. Venables is going to have his hand all over this defense. So you're going to take a guy that was a defensive assistant at Clemson, knows what Venables wants, knows how Venables wants to scheme, and you're going to put him in that system. Now you're going to bring in Troy's defensive coordinator, interim head coach, Brandon Hall, a guy that was named one of the top assistants that is ready to run his own program by 247 SI. All of them have been talking about it. He's a up and coming name. As a matter of fact, OU has now three of them on staff. One of them is a head coach. The other one's the offensive coordinator. The other one's a safety coach. That is a good start to building a coaching staff, folks. And now you got a guy that's a DC that's been a head coach. He's been an interim head coach. He knows how to run a program too. This is how you take that next leap into playing for titles. This is what Saban does. He gets guys that have maybe failed as a head coach, brings them back down to the coordinator position, and revamps them into what they could be later on. Venables looks like he's taking that same format, Dabo, Saban, all those guys, and using it. And it's the same thing that Stoops used to do. That's why OU was so good. They took all those guys that were going to be head coaches and made them coordinators or position coaches and let their career just ascend.
And you know that'll happen with Brandon Hall in particular, because like you said, Brandon, that's a guy that's been knocking on the door of a big time head coaching gig for a while now and has a lot of respect nationwide when it comes to his acumen as a defensive mind, and he can recruit as well. And so, look, Ted Roof you hit the nail on the head. He's a journeyman. He's something of a nomad. He's changed employers 16 times over a coaching career that now spans 35 seasons. So let's just say he's not around for very long. Let's just say, for the sake of the hypothetical, Ted Roof is at Oklahoma for 2 or 3 years, and then he retires or he's off to the next opportunity. Well, Brandon Hall is your next defensive coordinator
There you go.
that case. And Lord knows Brent Venables is not going to want to have his fingerprints all over his defense forever, right? As he gets accustomed to the responsibilities of a head coach, he's going to need to have less and less of an active role in coordinating the defense. And so you would imagine at that point in time, he starts to transition Brandon Hall into being the guy defensively, because at least initially, Brent Venables is going to be the guy defensively, regardless of what Ted Roof's title is. But at a certain point in time, Venables is probably going to want to go a little bit more hands off, like Bob Stoops did at a certain point, and just
Mhm.
serve in an oversight role over his staff and allow Brandon Hall to do his thing. And so when you look at things from that perspective, and you look at the fact that Oklahoma brought in another young up and comer in Miguel Chavis to coach the defensive ends, you have to like what has come into place thus far for Oklahoma's defensive staff. And you still got to hire a defensive line coach or defensive tackles coach, I suppose. You still got to bring in a cornerbacks coach. So there are a couple positions that we're still unsure as to who is going to fill them. But for what you have right now, and especially the momentum that you've been able to gain over the past week in terms of defensive recruiting, that speaks to the fact that Venables knows what he's doing already. He
Yeah.
stepped in with a
Yeah.
vision on day one, and he's determined to execute it. And he doesn't care what anybody thinks. He's not reading the
No.
message boards. He's not listening to us or the fans. He's a guy that has been coordinating defense at an extremely high level for upwards of 2 decades. And he has good reason to be of the opinion that he knows better than anyone else. So trust in BV here, folks. Put your faith in Brent Venables and trust that he knows what he wants to accomplish and that he will accomplish what he wants to accomplish with this Oklahoma football team, and most specifically the defense.
Right. And to your point, there was a question down here, and it said, "Well, he has all these young guys like a Brandon Hall, a Chavis, and obviously an elder guy that has been in a bunch of different jobs, like Ted Roof. Is Brent Venables going to have to do all the recruiting? No, no. He's going to help recruit the defense. He's going to help recruit the offense. He's going to have a lot of say in the recruiting of the defense because that's what he does. Specifically, I think Oklahoma fans can look at Lincoln Riley for an example of how things turned out. Lincoln Riley didn't, he recruited the quarterbacks, right? Well, he helped recruit the defense. He took specific guys on the defensive side of the ball that he would, make kind of his project, if you will. I think Marvin Jones Jr. was a prime example. Gabe Dindy was a prime example. Now, obviously, neither one of those guys are part of the class anymore, but that's neither here nor there. And obviously, Marvin Jones was never a part of the class, but he was probably going to be a part of the class. And to that point, his offensive recruiting was always really good because everybody knew his offense was going to be good. Everybody knew the personnel was going to be good. You think you can flip that over to the defensive side of the ball with Venables? I think you're going to see as time goes on, defensive recruits are going to start jumping at Oklahoma. And the question is going to be is, well, how are they going to be able to recruit to the offensive side of the ball as good as they do the defensive side of the ball? I think it's going to be a funny dichotomy after all the years under Riley to hear somebody say that under Venables. I'm not saying that's how it's going to play out. I'm just saying the chances of that are better than you think because of Brent Venables' background on defense, his understanding of the defensive recruiting more so than he does offensive recruiting. He's going to have to learn how to recruit offensive players at a high level. He's already starting to show that he can do that. If Oklahoma ends up doing what we all expect them to do, and that is pull off Jaden Gibson and Nick Evers right off the bat, that's a great start.
And
If
not
they can
only
somehow
Jaden Gibson and Nick Evers, Brandon, but consider this: Oklahoma emerges one of the front runners for Ahmad Moten. There's a very good chance at this point in time that Kobe McKenzie flips his commitment back from Texas to Oklahoma. Our 24/7 Sports national, or I suppose regional recruiting analyst Andrew Ivins just put in a crystal ball projecting that Oklahoma lands Alton Tarber, another defensive tackle who's currently committed to Georgia Tech. So that's another little wrinkle there. And all of a sudden, Oklahoma's right back in it for Chris McClellan as well. So there has been an immediate response on the recruiting trail in terms of Brent Venables and his staff getting in place at Oklahoma. And it's pretty evident that what momentum Oklahoma lost, I didn't even bring up Deshaun Brown either. My mistake on that. Deshaun Brown, they offered last night, Saturday night. He's on campus today. And lo and behold, 3 crystal balls in for Deshaun Brown to Oklahoma, looking like real good odds they bring him in as well. So, like I said, immediate life injected into this program's defensive recruiting efforts from Venables and his staff.
And to top that off, I mean, I wouldn't even I we haven't even brought up Jaron Kanak, and I know that's a guy that Venables has said, "Oh, I'm not going to recruit Clemson. I'm not going to do this with Clemson guys." Look, everything that I hear is that that kid absolutely 100% wants to be a Sooner. Like we keep hearing that over and over and over and over. Now, how they go about handling that, because I seriously doubt Venables is going to just take him off the cup. I don't see how that's possible with his morals and how he said he's going to go about doing things and trying to take from Dabo. I think it's going to have to be Jaron Kanak's decision of, look, I don't want to go to Clemson. I want to go to Oklahoma. And at that point, I don't know that Venables could turn that down. And so that's there's a lot in play there, and I think Oklahoma has a realistic shot. What is it true now? I don't know if you've heard this too, Parker, and I may be speaking out of turn here, but somebody told me there's something like 30% of the top 247 isn't going to sign early because of all the switching that's been going on with coaches and stuff like that. Have you heard that as well?
I don't know the exact figure, but that sounds pretty accurate. I would imagine that's the case.
So, and to that point, I would expect January and February to be quite fun for OU fans on the recruiting trail, because I can't imagine Oklahoma not flipping a big name or two. I just can't. I think that's going to happen. I think you're going to see some big name transfers come in. I know Venables doesn't want to rely on the transfer portal for a long period of time, but I think he knows that he has to dive into that year one. He's got to start building his program back up, and it's not a down program by any stretch. I think that's kind of the misconception everybody has. They're like, well, it's down. I mean, they could be 11-2 at the end of this year with a brand new coach and almost a good portion of the roster returning. You add in the recruits, you add in, a 5, 6, 7 transfers, and things start looking like you're going to be competing for a Big 12 title and potentially a playoff berth again. Now, obviously, a lot of that hinges on who the quarterback is, and your chances are exceedingly better if Caleb Williams is under center than anybody else. But let's say Caleb Williams leaves, and we'll dive into that topic here in just a minute. But let's say he leaves. Just hypothetically, people, take a deep breath. Hypothetically, you go get guys that haven't announced yet, which I find interesting. Spencer Rattler hasn't announced yet. Could he come back? I don't know that that's possible, but could he come back? I don't know. I mean, would he want to play under Jeff Lebby? Does Jeff Lebby fit his playing style? I think there's a lot of things to kind of sift through there. My answer initially would be no, because I think Lebby likes a guy that can move out of the pocket, mobile. Now, that is one thing we know Rattler can do. He's good at rolling out of the pocket and throwing on the move. But is he going to be able to decide to run kind of like a Matt Corral did and make that decision, split second decision, and go? That's something he's been hesitant about, specifically in 2021. He was more, I guess, decisive in 2020 than he was in 2021 for a variety of reasons. But what about Dylan Gabriel? I mean, what is he only thrown for? What, 7,800 yards or whatever in 2 seasons? Something crazy.
I think
he's almost 8,000 actually, 8,100.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of an open secret that he wants to go and play for Jeff Lebby. Right?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, that's why he hasn't announced anywhere. It looks like he's kind of waiting to see what Caleb Williams is going to do. So I mean, there are options out there, not just options, really good options. And let's say Caleb Williams goes. Wherever he goes, it's going to start a domino effect, because wherever he goes, the quarterback that's there is going to get in the transfer portal. That quarterback's going to go somewhere, and that quarterback at that program is going to get transfer portal. So OU is going to have a plethora of options, and not just options, really good options. I think that's something that people need to kind of wrap their head around. Then you add Nick Evers into the equation if he ends up committing to Oklahoma like we all expect him to. I think this thing, Oklahoma has a chance to be pretty damn good next year. They really do. It has a
No,
lot to.
Brandon. No,
I
come
know,
on.
right?
This
It's
is
crazy. It's crazy.
no, the wheels fell off. This is going to be a down year. They're not going to make a bowl game, and they're going to have to rebuild this thing from scratch.
Yeah. Well, what about what Jerry Smith? I think we need to talk about that hire because I think that
That's one of the
that is
biggest
going
hires
to.
in this whole deal.
It's massive. I mean, outside of I'm trying to think of what's the turnip seed? Is that his name?
Turnip seed, yep.
Yep.
Thad Turnip seed.
That turnip seed. I think that might end up being the biggest hire of them all at the end of the day. But that Venables is, I mean, he's doing some work on hiring, and the fact that they're going to have a extended recruiting department, extended analysts, and quality control department. They're going to have uh, sports psychologists on staff now. They're going to have uh, religious uh, whatever the religious mentors or whatever on staff. They're going to have team cooks on staff. I mean, there's a lot that's changing right now, and in a big way in that Oklahoma football department, and it's for the better. And it's going to take Oklahoma those things that have been lacking at Oklahoma, and Oklahoma's been doing great with what they have, but they're about to have SEC quality facilities, SEC quality staff, SEC quality just support staff. They're going to have everything, and it's fantastic. This is stuff that Riley wanted. He was told he was going to get to an extent. I was told. I don't know. I can't confirm if he was told he was going to get everything, but I know a lot of people have talked to have said he was going to get a lot of the things that he wanted, and he still left. But that's neither here nor there. They have Brent Venables now, and this guy looks like he's changing the culture of the program. And it's happening really quick. And it
Another
starts with
thing to
Smitty. It starts with Smitty.
yeah, another thing to consider, and I want to revisit what we brought up just a few minutes ago, which is the fact that Oklahoma is suddenly back in play for Chris McClellan. And, Chris McClellan is a guy that I've expressed I have some reservations about him being able to be an immediate contributor at the collegiate level. And I think a lot of people have those kinds of reservations. But you look at a guy like Chris McClellan, for instance, where physique is not the concern, it's just the athleticism, the motor, the play to play capability. There's no guy that can better unlock all of the potential within a guy like Chris McClellan than somebody like Jerry Schmidt, right? And so, particularly as you're looking at some of those guys that haven't met expectations over the first few years of their careers as a Sooner, guys that you would imagine kind of suffered under the Benny Wiley regime. You saw the offensive line regress in drastic fashion in the year 2020 and then again in 2021. A lot of those guys, you look at Marquise Hayes and Tyrese Robinson, for instance, two guys that arguably played the worst football of their careers as redshirt seniors. And you couldn't help but scratch your head at the time and wonder what in the world is up with that. But you replace Benny Wiley, whose focus was speed and flexibility, with a guy like Jerry Schmidt, who has a much greater focus on bulk and power. That's going to be so good for the offensive linemen in particular. And also, you look at guys on the other end of the trenches, guys like Jordan Kelly, who kind of got lost in the shuffle in 2021 along the defensive line. A guy like Reggie Grimes, who came in with all the hype in the world, but hasn't been able to find the field consistently over his first 2 years as a Sooner. I think it's guys like that that are going to benefit the most from the Jerry Schmidt weight room. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see just how solid Oklahoma is up front, both offensively and defensively, after one offseason of Schmitty in the weight room.
It's going to be huge. I think what he's done over the years, the things that he has accomplished as far as sending guys to the NFL. And when you talk to Adrian Peterson, DeMarco Murray, Sam Bradford, Trent Williams, Lane Johnson, Gerald McCoy, even Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, they talk about their time with Schmitty and what that meant to them and what he has done for them, not just as players, but as people. I think one player in particular that doesn't get talked about a lot because of his relationship with, and I know this for as a fact actually, is Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon in Jerry Smith were about as tight as you could get. I mean, I think the common misconception about him publicly is that he's a hard ass and he doesn't put up with anything. And that's very well, that's true. But what he does do is he loves the players and he demands the most out of you. But everybody that gives the most back to him are guys that not only are successful, but have long lasting relationships with him and speak glowingly of him publicly. And I think that goes a long ways. His respect also in the college football world as a strength and conditioning coach, the fact that he brought one of the best sports science guys in the country with him in Russell Dennison, I think this thing has a chance to just be special. And is it going to be? I think the odds are in Oklahoma's favor because they've seen it before. He did it for 17 years at the university, 18 years at the University of Oklahoma. Why wouldn't he be able to do it again? He's also changed a lot of how he does things, learned different ways while he was in the SEC and at A&M that he can bring back and help Oklahoma in that transition to the SEC. I mean, this is huge. I think that hire might have been the biggest outside of turnip seed of all else. I think we're hearing people want to splash. We might as well talk about it. The splash of the DB coach, I think, is going to be a splash name. I truly do. And not so much as a big name that everybody knows, but a guy that's accomplished, or at least has been around accomplished people and knows what he's doing.
You gonna give us a
And I
name,
think,
Brandon?
don't do that to me. I'll say this: everybody, everybody said that we've all heard Venables is telling the recruits the guy or the defense back coach is in the playoffs, and they don't want to name who it is. Well, you only have 4 options. So you would assume, and this is, what assuming makes an ass out of you and me, but we're going to assume on this show that it's one of those 4. And I think if it's one of those 4, home run. Any one of those 4 is a home run. Even the Cincinnati defensive back coach, hell, he's produced a Thorpe winner this year. Not a bad start.
Now,
So, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, this is, and then the defensive line coach, I think we've all assumed that it's going to be Todd Bates, but the more you start thinking about it, it just doesn't seem like that's going to happen right now. I'm not saying it's not 100%. I'm just saying the vibe that you're getting that he doesn't want to touch on-field guys at Clemson is kind of starting to ring true. Now you got to kind of wonder, what does he have up his sleeve? Is a defensive line coach a guy that is going to be, is he in the playoffs too? If that's the case, what? Like, what's
it's Mario
going on here?
Cristobal. It's Mario Cristobal.
He's not in the playoffs, though.
I know. I was thinking of the biggest splash name I could think of for defensive
Defensive line,
line.
he'd be an O line. If you want to think,
Was
big
he an O line
splash,
guy?
like
I guess. Yeah, I guess he
yeah,
was.
yeah. It would be hilarious if they brought in Coach O. Oh my God, I would love it. I would love seeing Coach O and Venables in a room recruiting. Talk about energy. There would be a lot of energy in that room.
There would
One,
be a
you could
ton of
understand
energy.
Todd. You just couldn't understand one of them.
I can't.
He's like waterboarding, he's grabbing his nipples.
I just couldn't imagine hearing, "Go Sooners."
Oh God, Boomer Sooner, Boomer Sooner.
Oh, I
Oh
think
my gosh.
that wouldn't be a bad hire at all. Like, it's not going to happen, but
No,
that wouldn't be
it's
a
not.
bad hire. Edo's a good football coach.
He is. He's a very good football coach. No, head coach. That's kind of that's debatable, I guess.
Well, he's got a
he
national
hit
championship.
He hit lightning in a bottle, bro. We all know it. I mean, we saw what happened. The second Joe Brady dipped out, so did their chances to win a national title.
Fair point.
So I think he stuck around with the old man. What was it? Was it Emerson? What's his name? Who was the OC? Dadgummit.
Oh,
my gosh.
it's on the tip of my tongue.
The tip of the tongue, the tip, the tongue.
Gosh, I can't.
Or is it
I
Emerson?
can't.
Is it Emerson or I can't remember? Yeah. Anyways, doesn't matter. But somebody just asked actually in this. They said, "Question: Any chance Gentry goes to USC now that they kept Dante Williams?" No, no,
We were on a Twitter space last week, and
no. I
Gentry
don't want
got
to
to
say
talking
any.
about.
No, it's not a chance. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, we I just remember we got to
Ensminger, by the way, is his
Ensminger. There
name.
you go, Steve Ensminger.
Thank you,
Yep.
hire that we have not named publicly.
Oh, he sent us a text, didn't he? Beautiful.
Yeah.
No, I think we were on a Twitter space about a week ago, and Gentry was on it, and he was talking about how OU stacked up to USC because, of course, you remember back in the summer there was all of the smoke and all the buzz and all the hype that it was, oh, Gentry Williams is going to USC. Oklahoma's going to lose him to USC. How in the world is Oklahoma going to let Gentry Williams go out of state to USC? And he was kind of reflecting on all that, and he said, I tell you what, Oklahoma's facilities are a whole lot better than that school out in Cali. He wouldn't even mention USC by name. So I mean, that gave me a pretty good indication that on the off chance Gentry Williams does decide to go literally anywhere but the University of Oklahoma, it's not going to be USC.
So what is Dante Williams going to do? I'm actually looking it up right now. I just find that intriguing that they're going to keep him. Did they hire? Is Manning going to be the DB coach still? I mean, I'm trying to figure this out. Nobody is really saying anything as far as what's expected of Dante Williams. I'm trying to find it here.
Well, as we know, getting any inside information about Lincoln Riley's program is like breaking out of Alcatraz. So,
well, unless that's fair. Man, I don't know. It's unclear what his role is going to be on staff.
There you go. Okay, so nobody knows anything more than we do. What other questions do we have from the listenership or the viewership, I suppose?
Outside when somebody said Manning outside linebacker, that would make sense. That's what I figured would be happening, but because they're going to have Kane as a D-line coach. So, and I talked to somebody today that was talking like Kane was going to be kept on at Oklahoma, but he just couldn't wait any longer because he wasn't for sure what was going to happen. I found that kind of intriguing. I don't know that to be fact. I'm just telling you what the source told me. Source kind of knows what he's talking about usually. So, that was kind of what we all thought. Like Parker, you and I discussed that. Venables called Tibbs into his office and let him go. Right? He never told Kane he was going to go. Never said anything. He didn't say he was going to keep him. As a matter of fact, the day after Kane put in his resignation and left was the day that they had the big staff meeting and decided how everybody was going to be kept, this, that, and the other. So, man, could you imagine if he would have waited just 24, 36 more hours? Could you imagine? Now, his wife is from California. A lot of it made sense to do that move. But at the end of the day, man, if you would have had Kane still on staff, this class is still sitting there with probably Dindy, Marvin Jones Jr.
Derek
I'm sorry,
Moore.
OU fans. Derek Moore. I'm sorry. Jason Barham. I am so sorry that I'm actually doing this to you guys. And probably still going to go after Deshaun Brown and Chris McClellan in the staff out because in the class out because you're going to end up with because you got four guys. You run basically a front four instead of the hybrid four that Grinch ran. Oh, that would have been one hell of a class. That would have been one hell of a class. But you know what they say, ifs and buts and what ifs. I don't know what the rest of it goes, but you know what they say. You know what they say, Parker.
There's a lot
You know,
of ways you can finish that
yeah,
that saying.
there is. Some of them aren't. Some of them aren't PG-13, so we're just gonna leave it alone. So, anyways, let's talk about Caleb Williams. We've talked about it on. People are saying quit it. So, um, let's talk about Caleb Williams. Meeting was going on. I don't know if it's still going on, but I know that they had a meeting today around 4ish. His father flew back in, along with a lot of people, a couple of people that are in the inner circle with the Williams family. And that's about all I can dive into. They were meeting with Levy and Venables. I mean, that's about as much as I can go as far as that meeting, because I don't know what how that meeting went. And obviously, those everybody that's on OU Insider knows that, like, I tell you all as much as I can. Obviously, I know more to the situation, but it's really hard to. It's nobody's business, I guess, is the point. Like at this juncture, it's nobody's business. And like I tell everybody, when Caleb and his family want it out there, they will tell me one way or the other, or they will tell you all themselves what needs to be put public. I've put public everything that I've been told to put public so far, and it comes straight from them. So I mean, like that is how it has worked. And so I don't say anything else. I don't say more. I don't say less. I say exactly what I'm supposed to and has to say publicly, and that is what everybody gets, because they want you all to know what's going on. Like they're not a family that's like closed off. Like they want you to know to an extent what is going on so that you all aren't sit around worried, and that they're transparent. They're transparent, but they're also very analytical about how they go about doing things. So you're not going to see a rash decision. They also understand that there's a lot of people waiting on them. So at this time, like I've said time and time again, he's working on his schoolwork. He's trying to get done with everything, and that should be done after this week. And he's focusing on bowl prep because he wants to play with his guys. That is it. He said they've been through way too much for them not to finish the season out as strong as they possibly can. And that is where it's at right now. Now they are having a meeting today, but I wouldn't expect fireworks coming from that meeting. I wouldn't expect anything of that. It's basically both parties getting to know each other a little bit better. Now they met over Zoom this past weekend, or last week when Levy came in, and that was the first time that Caleb got to meet. Now Caleb, from what I'm told, likes Coach Levy, so that's a good start. But that's not all there is to this, and I put this up publicly because I'm allowed to say it. What can they do? Do the exact same thing when it came to the recruitment of Caleb. The exact same thing. And it is they have a PowerPoint and spreadsheet. They have a spreadsheet, sorry, an Excel spreadsheet, not PowerPoint. That would be just death by PowerPoint. They have an Excel spreadsheet, and they're going to go through it, and it says this, 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 and this. And some of the things that they want, I know for a fact, is the development, NFL, strength and conditioning. Now, Oklahoma made a big splash. It wasn't at first because the family wasn't real. They didn't know a lot about Schmitty, but as they got to know a little bit more and more about Schmitty, that it tracks for them. So they're okay with that, from my understanding right now. That's not to say it's not going to change one way or the other, but that's what my understanding right now. They want to be developed, and they've been watching film of Levy's offense and doing this, doing that, doing a lot of things that you would expect them to do, making a decision of if this is going to fit, if they think Levy's offense is going to be able to prepare him for the NFL. And they're also giving Levy a chance to kind of, I guess, show them what he has planned for Caleb, if you will. So that's where things are at right now, and they're going to give Oklahoma time. This isn't something that is going to be rushed. So everybody's going to sit back, be patient. It's going to be a long 2.5 weeks. And I'm going to tell you all this. I'm going to tell you all straight up front right now. Even if Caleb Williams was to hop in the portal, it wouldn't be because they want to leave. I'm telling you all this. It would be because that's the only way for them to be able to listen to what other people have, kind of like another recruiting process. Like, what are they going to do? What can this program give? Can they develop? What is their idea of the package that they want to present to the Williams family as far as development of Caleb, this, that, and the other? Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just telling you that's the only way around it for them to do that by the NCAA rules. I mean, nobody said that that's what they're going to do. Nobody said that's not what they're going to do. I'm just telling you, you guys have to look at all the possibilities with this, because this is a family that thinks outside the box in a lot of different ways. Parker, you know this. You know, and you don't know them like I know them, but you know them well enough to know that they're an outside the box family, and they're going to think of every little way that they can to put themselves in the best position moving forward. No other ways around it. And if anybody wants to question real quick, if anyone wants to question their devotion to the University of Oklahoma, you're out of your mind. He stayed. He doesn't have to stay. He doesn't have to risk possibly getting injured or anything like that for the bowl game. He's doing that because he knows the university, if he was to leave before the season, a lot of the team wouldn't have played in the bowl game. They would have struggled putting together a team. A lot of people would have opted out for the bowl and just went, we're going to wait till next year. But the team wanted to play. Caleb said, I'm going to play with my boys. He is devoted to his friends. He's devoted to the university. They moved out here. They moved out here before he could even practice, because he wanted to get to know the culture, wanted to ingrain himself into the town of Norman, wanted to be a fabric of the community. They've put themselves out there. They've been in the student section. I mean, he's done everything that he can to be part of the student body, part of the people, and just a guy that embraces Sooners fans in the university. Same with the family. They were looking for a home and trying to put a bid down for one whenever the Riley news broke. Think about that. To buy so they can permanently have a home in Oklahoma anytime they wanted to come back after Caleb left high school or college. They were devoted. The rug got pulled out from underneath them, and now they're scrambling to trying to find out what is the best move for their son that has aspirations of the NFL. And if anybody has a problem with that, I don't know. I don't know what to tell anybody, honestly, because if that was your kid, you would be in the same situation wanting to know what's best for your kid. Period.
No doubt. And, you know, what you can say about the Williams family, and like you mentioned, Brandon, you and I have gotten to know them pretty well.
Someone said I had a crush on the Williams family. That's freaking funny, man. I'm just telling you the facts.
I mean, look, the reality is Caleb Williams is the most popular man in the state of Oklahoma, and there isn't a single person, there's not a single human being in terms of athletes on that roster that means more to the University of Oklahoma right now, not just in terms of his ability on the field, but his ability to recruit, his ability to lead, his ability to influence than Caleb Williams, right? And so, yeah, we are giving this situation a lot of press, and deservedly so, because there's a lot that hangs in the balance with Caleb Williams and his family's decision as to how to proceed after the conclusion of the 2021 season. And look, you said it already. They're committed to OU, but they're not going to live and die with OU, if that makes sense, right? Because Caleb Williams ultimately, Caleb Williams ultimately has, I mean, he has a long and distinguished NFL career ahead of him, one way or another. That dude could go transfer to an NAIA institution, and Lord knows in 2 years he'd be a first-round NFL draft pick starting on day one for one of those 32 franchises and making bank doing so. The guy is wondrously talented and has a very bright future at the professional level. But because of that, and because of the expectations that have been placed on him, particularly coming in mid-season and supplanting a Heisman Trophy frontrunner to start for one of the most prestigious football institutions in America, there may come a point in time at which Caleb Williams starts to look around and decides, you know what? There might be another place that could better prepare me for a future in the NFL than Oklahoma. And again, not saying that's going to happen. Not saying that has happened. Just saying, with all the turnover that has occurred at Oklahoma, the other thing we have to keep in mind as well is that as much as a lot of fans don't want to reconcile with this reality, Lincoln Riley was a big portion of the reason why Caleb Williams committed to Oklahoma in the first place, right? Because Lincoln Riley, in his first 3 years as head coach at Oklahoma, produced 2 Heisman Trophy winners, 2 Davy O'Brien Award winners, and 2 number 1 overall draft picks. The third guy in the lineage, Jalen Hurts, would have won the Heisman Trophy any other calendar year except for 2019, and just so happened to play his best ball in his lone season at Oklahoma in the same year that Joe Burrow was compiling the single greatest statistical season we've ever seen from a player at the collegiate level, at least at the quarterback position. So there was a lot of reason for Caleb Williams to like what Lincoln Riley could offer him, not just what Oklahoma could offer him, but what Lincoln Riley could offer him. And when your head coach turns tail and heads to the West Coast in the cover of night, right, that kind of leaves your head spinning a little bit. And it's pretty understandable that Caleb and his family would be evaluating this situation from every possible angle to try and figure out what the next step is, because there's no clear next step. They, as much as anybody, have had their entire lives and Caleb's entire collegiate career thrown into limbo all of a sudden. And yeah, it makes all the sense in the world to say, sure, he should stick it out at Oklahoma. He should be the face of the program. He should continue to recruit and try to build that national championship contender that he anticipated building at Oklahoma. But again, as the quarterback, you're the one that has all eyes on you. If there wasn't going to be an enormous amount of pressure on Caleb Williams day 1 in 2022 already, there certainly will be all the more now, just because of how much roster turnover there will be as well. And because everybody kind of looks at Caleb Williams as the savior. So this is a very easy decision for a fan to make. This is not at all an easy decision for an athlete, particularly an athlete in this particular circumstance, to make. And so my advice to Oklahoma fans everywhere would be, have patience, trust that Caleb Williams is going to make a rational and thought out decision in which every single angle and every single aspect of that decision is taken into consideration. And if he is Oklahoma's starting quarterback in 2022, fine and well. If not, you're just going to have to trust that Brent Venables and Jeff Lebby, 2 highly respected and highly capable football coaches, are going to have a backup plan in place that prevents football Armageddon in Norman, Oklahoma.
Yeah, look, and I also want to add this before we change topic and gears here. People ask me all the time, well, where do you think they're good? What do you think they're going to do? What do you think they're going to do? Or how do you think this is going to end up? I don't know. I don't know, because they don't know. Like, if I knew, that would mean they knew, because they would have told me. You know what I mean? Like that's just how it works. I will say this though. If I was to guess right now, right here, right now, how this plays out, I don't know. There's just part of me that thinks there's a chance that he stays. Like, there's a decent chance he stays. I'm not saying that that's a guarantee to happen, and that's what's going to happen. I've been on the fence about this for so long, because when I talk, and now I think how these meetings go obviously change that. So let me rephrase this. I think if the meetings go well, and I know this is super Captain Obvious, if these meetings go well and they can do the things, because Levy's a very organized individual. That was kind of the deal with him and Kiffin. They're 2 different styles. Kiffin's kind of fly by your pants. Levy is super organized individual. And so I would say that I think there's some things that need to be cleaned up between both parties. And it's not like a negative thing or anything like that I could dive into really, but just as far as like understanding how they're going to do this, how they're going to do that type of stuff. I don't want to get y'all's hopes up and say that he's going to stay, but I do want you all to understand that if he does leave, it's not without thought, and like a lot of thought, and like a lot of trying to figure out a way to stay, because that's the initial plan, is to stay. So I'm going to lean towards them staying, because that's the initial plan, is to stay, and because they don't want to up and move Caleb out and do this and have to go learn a new offense and all this stuff. He's already going to have to learn a new offense, let alone learn a new offense and do it in a completely different environment to where he's been for the last year and a half. So, and with all of his friends. So there's a lot of things that are in play here. I wouldn't bet money on him staying, I'll say that, but I guess just right now I'll lean towards him staying just because, but I would say it's like 50-49. Like that's how close I think it is.
What's the
I mean, that's how
1%,
close
Drumm? What's the 1%?
the 1% is the variable between the meetings going well and not going well, so you can flip it on its end real quick.
Gotcha. Okay,
So
our chat over on the YouTube Live is asking for dark horse guys to watch on signing day. So I take that to mean guys that we might not be expecting to ink with Oklahoma on signing day come Wednesday, but guys that could be in play for the Sooners. Thoughts?
Jaron Knack.
Starts and ends with that guy.
Right there, Jaron Knack. I think there could be a surprise or two, I'm sure, but I don't know if I want to go that far. Chris McClellan, it would be a surprise, I think. I think he is a guy that really has been up and down. I got to call his dad today and figure out what's going on, how that Florida trip went with dead period rolling around. Deshaun Brown, I think we expect him to sign with Oklahoma, but it's not a guarantee. I mean, hell, I expected a commit to already be announced by 6 o'clock, honestly. So I don't know. I think there's going to be some surprises. I think that's something that we can like definitively say. If there's not going to be a surprise this nice National Signing Day, there will be in February. Like there is going to be something that happens with this Venables squad to where they pull a rabbit out of their hat, one way or the other. Is it Wednesday? Don't know. I tend to lean towards February National Signing Day to where that might happen.
Well, and with so many guys not signing until that February signing day in particular, too, there's going to be a lot of big names still out on the board. And that's what people have to keep in mind. Oklahoma, trust me, there's going to be a vocal minority that acts like Oklahoma's signing class and their recruiting cycle is over and done on Wednesday. And if Oklahoma only ends up with 14 or 15 commits at that point, Lord knows stuff is going to hit the fan on the message boards because people are going to start freaking out. But the reality is there are still 6 weeks left in this cycle, 6 weeks, and a lot can transpire in that span of time, especially when you take into consideration that comparatively speaking, especially relative to years past, so many players are still going to be unsigned come that February date because there's been so many coaching changes, so many moves on the carousel over the last few weeks that a whole lot of guys' recruitments have just been thrown into limbo. And you look at some of those guys, for instance, 2 guys that were formerly committed to Oklahoma and Kobe McKenzie and Demetrius Hunter. Those 2 guys are still signing on Wednesday, but there are plenty of other players in that same type of situation that are going to need more time to evaluate their options. Guys that don't have plans to enroll early and guys that want to be able to make sure that they're taking everything into consideration, hearing from everybody interested and arriving at a decision the holistic way. And you look at so many of these players that will still be on the board after Wednesday, and Oklahoma could make a very legitimate play for several of them. For instance, we know Javonte Barnes is signing on Wednesday. He's not going to go public with his decision until the All-American game in January. So that's a guy that, again, we won't know for sure whether Oklahoma has him or not until the new year. But you look at a guy in Ahmad Moten, for instance, very recent Oklahoma offer, 3-star defensive lineman out of Florida. He's going to take a campus visit in January, so he could be a late addition to this class. With how much movement there's already been and how much movement Venables and his staff have initiated over the past 6 days, I am not putting anything past them. And so if there are big names, 4 stars, even 5 stars that are still unsigned and even uncommitted after Wednesday, it wouldn't shock me to see Venables or Levy and their assistants go all in and gung ho to try to make some splashes down the line here to secure a top 12 or a top 10 recruiting class for Oklahoma. And the funny thing is, Brandon, that's not at all out of the realm of possibility. If you'd told any Sooner fan that they were going to have a top 10 class 3 hours after Lincoln Riley shipped off and Brandon Innes decommitted and Trayon Webb decommitted and everything started to kind of go off the rails, they would have looked at you and called you out of your mind. And yet, it speaks to just how good of a job Venables and his staff have done stabilizing all of this in their first week on the job.
And I think guys like, even Jamar Kane, who stuck around and helped stabilize things before he left, guys like DeMarco Murray, Kel Gundy, Bill Beatenbow, even Brian Odom before he left, even Roy Manning before he left. I know fans don't want to hear that, but he had a lot to do with just staying in. Bob Stoops, probably more than anybody else. And then I think guys like Drew Hill, the director of player personnel, the fact that they're out there organizing, getting the flights booked, getting these guys from point A to point B, setting up the meeting times with the recruits and the in-homes and doing all this. There was a collective effort of everybody that stuck around, and the majority of those guys that stuck around got to keep their jobs. So I think that was big, very big, as far as Oklahoma keeping the 2022 class intact and kind of having a baseline to sell recruits and targets that they were going to offer late, and just try to make a last ditch effort in 2 weeks and say, all right, we got 2 weeks, get to know us really quick, come and take an official visit to us. You want to be a Sooner? Okay, cool. Let's sign here. And it was all done real fast, but BV and company kind of pulled it off. Now, I don't know that I would say top 10, but I think I could see Oklahoma being between 8 and 15 is kind of the range I'm putting them when it's all said and done. And that's this Wednesday. Now, February, I think that can change a lot. If the amount of targets are still left out there, recruits are still left out there on the board that didn't want to sign early. Whew. I think Gentry Williams is one of those guys. Obviously, I have to talk to him again, but I know he was looking to, because Oklahoma hadn't named a DB coach, and he kind of wanted to know who that might be. So he was kind of trying to decide if he was going to sign Wednesday or if he was going to sign late. Last I heard, he was leaning towards signing in February. I still think the kid ends up at Oklahoma. So I think everybody needs to take a deep breath. Like, I don't think that's going anywhere. He just wants to make sure that him and the DB coach get along before he makes a drastic decision. And I don't think anybody can blame the guy. So there's still a lot to go. I mean, these kids are making a life change decision. I know people asked about Kobe McKenzie a couple of times in this too. I like where OU stands. I like where OU stands, and I'll leave it at that. That's about as good as I can get in on that one.
And how awesome would it be, right, if Brent Venables' first commit as head coach at Oklahoma was a guy that he flipped from Texas? What a mic drop would that be for the new Sooners head coach? A lot of people would have a lot of fun with that one.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of things he's going to have to, they're changing a lot of things at Oklahoma. I think one of them is the NIL. I think first and foremost, Oklahoma's got to get on that NIL train, because Texas is running the show on that, and their offensive line recruits is ridiculous. I know people have asked about Devin Campbell. I think the kid ends up at Texas right now. Before all this offensive line branding and NIL stuff came public, it almost looked like he was an OU lean. Not almost, it looked good. It looked like that. So I just think that it's something Oklahoma's gonna have to do, because if they don't, they're gonna get left in the dust in a lot of different ways. The NIL has changed the game with how things are done, and I think Oklahoma has something they're gonna do, and it's gonna be pretty significant. I don't know when that's gonna take place or how that's gonna take place, but I think they're working on things down the road that can be maybe not on the same level as far as financially as Texas, but the one thing Oklahoma is going to have over Texas is development, not more than one. They're going to have development. They're going to be able to win, and they're going to have stability. Brent Venables is the first coaching search Oklahoma's had in 23 years. How many has Texas had in 23 years? They had Mac Brown.
I believe it's more than one.
I think it's 4. So basically, every 5 years, 5.5 years, every 5.5 years, they've been looking for a new coach. That's not stability. That's literally the exact opposite of stability. So I think they have that. Money is great. Short-term money is great. Oh, I'm making $100,000 a year for my 3 or 4 years, 5 years in college. Up back down to $60,000 because I didn't get developed. And I think that's a selling point. Oklahoma is going to say, look, you may only make $50,000, $60,000 a year at Oklahoma when we get the NIL stuff done. But you want to know what you're going to do? You're probably going to end up in the NFL, or at least on the practice squad, making $250,000, $300K. That's better than being a sales rep for some pharmaceutical company. Now, obviously, those guys make a lot of money. I was just throwing that out as an example, but and a bad one at that, to be honest. But it was the first trade that came in my head for some odd reason. But I think Oklahoma has a development side on them, and I think if you can prove that you can get guys to the NFL, which Oklahoma does on a routine basis with Bill Beanbo, that's going to go a lot further than being 5-7 and still not having people drafted in the first round on the offensive line. At the end of the day, it's great making $100,000 for 5 years. What are you going to do the rest of your life? How much money are you going to make the rest of your life? You see what I'm saying? Like, I think that's something that we'll be able to combat that to an extent. Now, you also have to get immature 16, 17, 18-year-olds to see that far ahead. And that's a chore in itself. So we'll see how that plays out.
All right, let's close out here, Brandon, by taking a question or two more before we wrap up, because
Okay.
we still got a podcast tonight. So busy night of content for our OU Insider members.
We do. Let's there's just a lot of comments right now. Does anybody have questions that they want to have answered down here? Anybody got a question? Okay, here we go. Did the NIL cost Spencer Rattler's downfall and losing his role as a starting job? I think that I don't know that we can answer that definitively.
I don't know.
Like, how are we supposed to know that definitively?
I think you're spot on. I think the reality that Oklahoma's head coach had one foot out the door for the majority of the 2021 season has thrown a massive unquantified variable into the equation that everyone is going to try to put together to solve the problems or account for the problems that Oklahoma had in the year 2021, and particularly the issues that Spencer Rattler had in 2021. You really don't know at this point how much of it was due to his own shortcomings, whether mental or physical, and how much was due to the fact that he simply was not being coached by a guy who was 100% there. And so I think there are a lot of people, a lot of Sooner fans that are going to be on the Spencer Rattler train wherever he ends up. They'll be rooting for him. And I think there are a lot of fans who are hoping he lands at UCLA so he can go ahead and stick it to Muleshoe when they face off next year in one of the more classic rivalry games in all of college football. But I know the NIL thing is a popular drum to pound. And did it have something to do with it? Maybe. Maybe. But at the same time, I think when you zoom out and you look at the complete picture, you can't really draw that conclusion or any conclusion without the caveat that Lincoln Riley was, again, like I said, not all there in the year 2021. And that probably was more of a detriment to Spencer Rattler than anything that was happening off the field.
Yeah. So I've been asked about 10 different times on here by somebody named Michael Jordan, how do I know the Williams family? And somebody said, I don't. So I don't know the Williams family.
I will I will go
Apparently.
ahead and confirm right now. Brandon does indeed know the Williams family.
So yeah, I covered them. I did a expose on them on how the making of a 5-star quarterback went out there. I spent about 3 or 4 days with the family doing that story, and then I covered through. Uh, I covered his recruitment actually, and I was the first person to put a crystal ball in for him to Oklahoma, uh, long before anybody else, because I knew where he was going. So there's that. So yeah, I know him. It's just not something that, I mean, it's I put out what I'm allowed to put out and what I'm asked to put out, and that's about it. But other than that, I don't really like. I mean, it's nothing to really talk about. I mean, it's their decision, and they'll tell you when they're getting ready on where they're going to end up, if they're going to stay or go. I think they're still just deciding through some things. That's the best I can say right now, man. There's other questions like Zach Evans coming to Oklahoma.
Nope.
Oklahoma was recruiting him. Yeah, Oklahoma was recruiting him. And I think last Friday or Thursday or Friday, he was going to take a visit from what I was told. And I think that kind of got squashed a little bit. Now, I'm not going to say they're done with it because I don't know that for sure just yet, but I know that he can take visit. He's a transfer, so he can visit any other time, I think. I don't know I don't know. Does a dead period, does that work with the transfer people too, or is it,
I
or can
wouldn't
they,
assume so.
because that's not fair. They have to figure out where they're going to go, right?
Yeah, I would
I
assume
need to
that's not
ask. That's
applicable to
something.
them.
That's something I need to look at. I need to look up that rule because that's interesting. Are Farouk and Mario Williams tied to Caleb Williams? Yes. Yes. Farouk and Caleb played together in Little League and have known each other. As a matter of fact, we did Caleb Williams' uh, announcement with CBS HQ, so CBS Sports HQ. So when he went out and announced his commitment in DC, Colin and I flew out there, and we were the only reporters at that thing, and we got to be the only ones covering it because we knew the family and we knew Caleb. So we got to do all that, and it was really cool. It was really fun, and Farouk was there, and he obviously had told us at the time he was going to Oklahoma, and he was going to announce that day with Caleb. But as good of friends as they are, he decided to take a step back, and he wanted Caleb to have his day by himself. And he went ahead and announced, I think it was 3 weeks later, if I remember
His
correctly,
mom's birthday. Yep.
uh, his mom's birthday. Yep. So no, was that September, right? It was September that he announced because his mom's birthday was in September. That's right. So he announced in September. He ended up waiting, but he was silently committed the whole time. And Mario knew Caleb was going to Oklahoma back when he committed. I believe it was April or March that he committed, if I can remember correctly. Because what happened is yeah, I can't remember. I'm so confused on the dates of how all this played out, but I do know Caleb Williams came in on his official visit, and it was like March 9th or whatever. And when he came, it may have been earlier than that, maybe like March 3rd or whatever. It was early March because I ended up flying from Florida where we did our OU Insider Florida tour and meeting the Williams family back in DC so we could start working on taking the photographs of him working out and doing the interviews with the mom, the dad, the trainers, all the people around him, and all that stuff for the story that I was doing. And that's kind of how I ended up getting glued in with all that and become, friends with them. So um, at the end of the day, I mean, the Williams family is also really close with the SI's national John Garcia. Is it John Garcia, right?
John
Yeah,
Garcia.
really close with, very close with him as well. I mean, very close. So I think, and they're very close with Steve Wiltfong. So that's how we do it. I mean, we cover the families, we cover the recruiting process, and that's how that thing works. But yeah, it's a big deal as far as they as far as Williams and Farouk. If Caleb Williams stays, Mario Williams and Jalil Farouk are most likely going to stay. I think that's a guarantee. Uh, Parker, you kind of go ahead and how about O-line updates? What do you think of O-line recruiting?
Yeah, well, I mean, Obviously, at this point, it's a pretty safe bet that Texas leads for DJ Campbell. At least that's the consensus opinion. And it appears almost a certainty that Malik Agbo is going to sign with Texas. Tell you what, folks, that NIL deal for the Horns is doing wonders. So, it kind of leads you to believe that, and with Cam Dewberry increasingly trending toward Texas A&M, it kind of makes you wonder, okay, what is left on the table for Oklahoma? What could they get in terms of offensive line recruiting? It seems that they're cooling on Demetrius Hunter. They haven't really been in regular contact with him since he decommitted, from what I'm told. And so, man, it kind of looks like maybe Oklahoma's content to just ride this out with Jake Taylor and Jacob Sexton. I believe those are their only two offensive line commits at the moment, Brandon. Am I correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's Jake Sexton, Jake Taylor, and that's it, right?
So, I mean, maybe that's an indication that Marquise Hayes and Tyrese Robinson are going to return, and you don't have the attrition that you maybe anticipated you would have at the beginning of the year. But yeah, like I said, with OU cooling on Demetrius Hunter, with Malik Agbo and DJ Campbell trending towards Texas, and Cam Dewberry trending towards Texas A&M, Oklahoma's board in terms of offensive linemen, I mean, the cupboard looks pretty bare at this point in time.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, good question, football. The Allen offensive lineman, you're talking about Nato Umeozulu. Well, he was in Oklahoma for his second official visit this past weekend. So I think Oklahoma stands a really good chance on landing him. I think of all players, he's the hardest to reach. He's the hardest to get to talk. His family
Absolutely
doesn't
the
talk. Like
hardest.
they don't talk. So if you all want to know somebody that we aren't going to know, that's a guy we don't know. We don't know. I mean, Steve Wiltfong knows him better than everybody else, and Steve Wiltfong will tell you he's hard to get a hold of for him, and nobody's hard to get a hold of for the goat Steve Wiltfong. So that is a that's gonna be hard to read. But I think Oklahoma has a pretty good shot. You come for two official visits, you kind of tipping your hand a little bit of you as far as potentially liking that program. I would assume. So another good question was I saw one. There's two of them that I wanted to answer particular because I thought they were really good ones, and it was the DB from Watts from Ohio State and his transfer. Somebody asked if Oklahoma had a chance. I would believe Oklahoma would have a chance there because he was committed to Oklahoma for a good period of time and then decommitted and went to Ohio State. He's from right around the Frisco area, if I remember correctly. So he would be only 2 hours from Oklahoma Norman. I think that makes a lot of sense. So if Oklahoma has any interest in him, I would assume he would have interest in Oklahoma. That's something to watch. But first things first, Oklahoma's got to announce their DB coach. We'll see how long that plays out. I think the move of Lanning might expedite that a little bit, don't you, Parker? As far as the naming of the DB coach, and that's
Yes,
not
I do.
saying the guy's going to be from Georgia. I'm just saying that it just makes the coaching movement because you're going to want to have your guy out there to know kind of he's off the market type of deal. So whether it's Alabama, Cincinnati's, Georgia's, or Michigan's, yeah. I mean, you want to have that name out there. That way, you know that they're off the market as far as where Coach Lanning could go, and these other new coaches could go and try to pull away from. Finally, there was another good. Oh, Marvin Mims and Theo Weiss. I've heard Theo staying. Theo Weiss is in the portal. Number one. Number two, he's one of those guys that you kind of hear a little bit of buzz that he may come back. And Marvin Mims, a funny story about that was I was at the OU Florida game. I took both my boys and their best friend to the game. We were sitting down there behind the benches and stuff, and we're walking up the steps to go take them to the concession stand. And Marvin Mims walking by, and he makes eye contact with me and stops me and said, "Hey man, what are you doing?" So we talked for a second, and he basically told me, "I don't want to leave. I want to see how this all plays out." Now, this was before Levy was hired. This is before Venables was announced. So I would assume he's going to stay, but I think the quarterback situation is also going to play into that decision. If Caleb Williams stays, I think you have a good chance of Marvin Mims staying. If he leaves, they're going to have to pull somebody in really quick to try to get him and Theo Weiss, obviously, kind of make them feel comfortable about staying at Oklahoma. So I think offensively, the scheme is going to attract a lot of people, but the quarterback's going to make them stay, if that makes sense. So, anyways, is there another question?
I would say we can just
are
about.
the portal guys are they're not practicing with the team. They can't practice with the team.
No, they cannot.
So, yeah. So that's gonna do it, guys. Appreciate you guys being on here with us. I know that we didn't get. I'll just answer the special teams coach. They're talking about who it's going to be. I'm going to assume Brandon Hall is going to have a lot of say in that because he's
Safe
got a lot of
assumption.
special teams background. Yep. So the new safety coach. All right, that's going to do it. I swear that's going to do it. That's the last question we're going to answer. Just real quickly, we're doing 50% off on OU Insider right now. So $53 can get you 1 year, which means you'll get all the way through the 2022 season. You'll get the National Signing Day, and that's when it ends. National Signing Day Wednesday, I think at like 10 p.m. Central Time. You can't sign up for 50% off anymore, but it's $53. And if you're already a month guy for OU Insider, you can upgrade and get half off and not have to pay, $108 normally that you get for the value of being a VIP member on OU Insider, because that VIP membership gets you every 247, like all 250 247 VIP sites. So you can go check out Texas, Alabama, Texas A&M, you name it. You can go look at it. You can go comment on it. You can do whatever you want. Just don't get banned from there. If you get banned, you can still go look at it, but you can't comment anymore. So yeah, it's a really, really good deal. Like, it's a great deal. At the end of that, at the end of the promotion period, you get Paramount Plus for free. So there's all these different things. You won't get it when you first sign up. But at the end of the promotion, after you enter your first year, you will be able to get Paramount Plus for free whenever you re-sign up. So a lot of those things encompass, I think it's like 200 and something dollars in value when you get the Paramount Plus added onto it after that year that you've been on with OU Insider. So it's well worth it. I mean, we have a lot of people that absolutely love the Paramount Plus part of the package. They love being on OU Insider. We do chats, we do video stuff, we do stuff like this behind closed doors just for VIP members. And it's also more detailed when we do that. Like, we don't just talk vaguely, we talk really in-depth stuff with them because they're paying members and that's what they get. They get the inside scoop. So you'll be on top of recruiting stuff. You'll be on top of knowing all the team stuff, the insider stuff. You'll get sideline view stuff. I mean, Parker does this where he has a plays, has a score, the down, the distance, and everything. When he breaks down the game for you, you can rewatch it from the sideline and get that atmosphere of what it was like from his perspective on the field, and it's a really cool deal after each and every game. We cover basketball, we cover basketball recruiting, we cover our national team is the best in the business. I don't think it's close. Steve Wiltfong's on there all the time. We just had Andrew Ivins come in there and drop a bomb on OU Insider VIP not too long before we started this. So, I mean, it's a really cool gig. I mean, it's a really fun place. We've added almost 1,000 new members in the past 3 weeks, and we're on record pace for everything. 21 million page views, and all of this I say is because you guys are awesome Oklahoma Sooners fans, and you guys make it happen. You guys create our job. We don't have this without you, and we know that, and we can't thank you guys enough. So thank you guys. If you want to sign up, we would love to have you. $53 right now, get you 1 year OU Insider, get you National Signing Day, get you the second National Signing Day, get you all the transfer stuff, get you all the spring practices, the spring games, all the official visitors during the spring, all the official visitors, all the inside information that we're going to drop, team notes during all that, team notes during the off season, fall practice team notes, and then obviously the 2022 season. Brent Venables starting back up. We'll see where that goes, and we'll see how he recruits, because we're going to have that covered head to toe as well, all the way back to next National Signing Day. So we hope you guys sign up. We would love to see you guys on there, and that's going to do it. So for Parker Thune, my name is Brandon Drumm. We want to thank you guys for joining us right here. We'll be back sometime, maybe this week or next week, for the next OU Insider YouTube Live. Y'all have a blessed day.